Hi, I'm Aldo Pellegrini, and welcome back to the channel. Today, I wanted to talk to you about stereo blocks and mono blocks in Quad Cortex, because reading through various forums and social media, I see there's a bit of confusion. Actually, even Neural has never really explained how these blocks work. So if you're also interested in understanding how they work and how to make the most of them, follow us to the end. So here we are. The purpose of this video is to try to understand how these stereo or mono blocks work, because Neural has always told us that some blocks are mono and some are stereo. And I see there's a bit of confusion about what that means or how these blocks actually work in the various discussion groups. Actually, even Neural creates a bit of confusion because not everything they write is exactly as it should be. And now I'll give you some examples. So let's start with the cabinet block. We have cabinets that are labeled as mono or stereo. Let's pick one, the V30 mono, just as an example. We don't really need it. But if I go and look, for example, let's choose a very dark microphone. As very dark as possible. Then let's just let's take a high quality condenser microphone and carefully move it to the left side. And then, on the opposite side, let's select a very bright and articulate microphone and move it to the right. Okay, listen to this video with headphones or good speakers. Otherwise, you won't be able to perceive what we're talking about. Now I'll have a left sound and a right sound, with the two sounds clearly distinct. So a darker sound, more mid-range, and a brighter sound on the right, which together give me this effect. This is a mono speaker, okay? Mono, so as you can see, it doesn't mean that a mono sound comes out, but that theoretically, the sound that comes before can only enter in mono. So it can't put a stereo effect before the speaker, because it will then be converted to mono. And I'll show you how. If I now, for example, add a ping pong delay, which as you can see is a digital stereo delay, this sound goes left and right like magic. But if I put it before the amplifier, listen, this sound always stays straight. So the sound in question remains mono because I put it in front of the amp head. The amp head isn't a stereo head, right? The amplifier. Unless you have two amplifiers panned left and right, the sound coming from a stereo delay gets merged into a single channel and will come out in mono. The particular thing that I personally found to be a little bit strange and quite unexpected is the specific scenario. If I carefully place it between the amplifier head and the speaker cabinet, in this particular instance, the cabinet is configured for mono operation, then the audio signal should, as we have just clearly observed with the amplifier head, be automatically merged into a single unified channel. However, quite surprisingly, it actually persistently stays in stereo. This is something that, honestly speaking, truly doesn't make logical sense at all. If I now proceed to use a completely random stereo cabinet, please listen very carefully. You will notice that the sound distinctly travels from the right side to the left side. Now I'll let you hear something else. In stereo, that's correct. Let's go back to a mono cabinet. Did you hear that now the delay signal went mono? Why? Because I hadn't panned the output channels. Now it's back to stereo. Let's retap. With the mono cabinet, if you keep the output panned, you see this output signal here. So this is the signal coming out of the cabinet centered. The stereo sound I put in front. So in this case, the delay will be routed, let's say, in dual mono. So the left and right will be combined together. But if I pan the sound of the cabinet, meaning the two microphones, one to the right and one to the left, the sound of my delay will also be preserved and kept as it was originally, on the right and on the left, okay? So actually, the mono cabinet isn't really a mono cabinet. The term mono cabinet means it can receive a stereo signal, but this will only be output in stereo, so left and right, if I pan the channels of my cabinet, one to the right and one to the left. If I use a stereo cabinet, let's just pick one at random, you can see now the balance is kept in the center. I didn't have to pan my sound to the right and the sound to the left, but the delay will be in stereo. So both to the right and to the left, this is specifically because of the cabinet block. Basically, before I had a cabinet with two microphones, and I had to put one mic to the right and one mic to the left. This also changed my sound because the brighter sound went all the way to the right and the darker sound went all the way to the left. With the stereo cabinet instead, I blend the signals from both microphones together into a single, let's call it dual mono, without losing the uniformity or the tone I created, without splitting it to the right and left. But the stereo effects I have in front will still come out one on the right and one on the left, okay? So this, let's say, is the first confusion people have between a mono and a stereo block, because it's always been explained poorly and not very clearly in the various videos I've seen, or in the various tutorials, and even in the manual it's not explained very well. So in theory, a stereo block, this is basic theory, a stereo block, aside from outputting in stereo, can also receive stereo signals. So I can receive my delay, which is left and right, and I keep this separation of sound. Now, let's see what happens, for example, with delay effects. So let's think about chorus, reverbs, and so on. We need to pay attention to a few things, which we're going to look at now, especially with reverbs, because otherwise we risk losing our signals and our stereo imaging. So let's listen, for example, to the choruses, the Dream Chorus stereo and the Dream Chorus mono. Let's say that when it comes to effects like dual chorus, the dual chorus is already stereo. When you see the width parameter, which is basically the width of the sound, that already tells you it's a stereo effect. On the other hand, if you look at the Dream Chorus mono, it doesn't have that parameter, okay? Even though the Dream Chorus stereo doesn't have anything written, meaning it doesn't have a width parameter, it still gives you a sound that, let's say, has a stereo image, okay? Because you can hear it moving from right to left. I don't get the same feeling as with the dual chorus, because that's more pronounced and I can decide how much I want that effect to come through. But now, as I'm about to let you hear, you'll notice the difference. So obviously, to really hear this effect, the chorus mix has to be at 100%. Otherwise, I'll still be sending out a straight signal, which is what I had before, my dry signal, right? This is my dry signal. Let me just turn it on. Wait a moment. Let me turn her completely off. I am now turning on my Dream Chorus pedal at exactly 0%, 50-50. Absolutely 100%. Indeed. Okay, that is correct. This. You can clearly hear it moving. It's very subtle, not at all a heavy or overpowering effect. Let's now switch to a mono sound. In this case, you can hear the effect isn't in stereo, so this chorus doesn't move between the right and left channel signals. In this other case, though, it does, even if just a little. You can hear the frequencies moving. Then, let's do another example. Now I'll put the delay in front of it again. Can you hear it going from right to left? I'm using the Dream Chorus stereo, which outputs in stereo, but also receives stereo. Now I'll do the same thing with the Dream Chorus mono. Can you hear it? In this case, if the chorus isn't stereo and it's receiving a stereo effect before it, like the delay, you won't hear it. It turns it into mono. Be careful because this is a very important point. It's important because it doesn't receive an effect in stereo. In the specific case of the chorus, with the mix at 100%, the delay becomes mono. But even with the mix at 50%, this block just can't receive stereo sounds, even if I set the wet-dry parameter to 50-50. You'd think, okay, let some of the previous signal through, which might have been in stereo. Let's put on the stereo effect, the Dream Chorus stereo. Listen, my delay goes from right to left. Perfect, so we're on the same page. The stereo effect is able to process the incoming signal in stereo. But I say this because a lot of us are used to using reverbs, right? In the case of reverb, actually, the block behaves in an even different way. So you need to get a bit familiar with this thing. Why do I say that? So look, this is a mind hold. It's not stereo. It doesn't say ST. As you saw, ST is written on the spring verb and on the spring standard. There are no other stereo effects in the reverb section. Listen, I can hear the reverb, but my delay, which is placed before, still comes out on the right and on the left. Because I have a significant 35% mix on the reverb effect, so it effectively lets a substantial portion of the previous dry signal pass through, alongside my distinct delay on the right and left channels. And that's precisely why I can clearly hear it in a rich stereo soundscape. Unlike the typical chorus blocks, this particular block is inherently a mono block, but it possesses the capability to, let's say, receive stereo information from the input to then mix it internally. However, when I meticulously set the effect mix to a full 100%, which implies it might be able to receive this initial dry signal in its original stereo format and then process it accordingly, when it ultimately sends it out, it consistently outputs it in a singular mono signal. Oh, do you hear that faint, distant sound? I mean, really, I think the delay repeats in this case are all recorded in monaural sound. But if I lower the mix, then I'll hear the right and left. So actually, reverbs can't process a stereo effect. This is something important to know because anyone who wants to work with stereo delays and then have them processed by a reverb needs to keep this in mind. The only option is obviously to lower the mix. Also because we don't need such heavy reverb, or to send them in parallel. Let's do another example with a spring reverb. Let's change it. Let's try here. You can hear the delay effect now goes into a single mono channel. As soon as I gently lower the mix level, I can clearly perceive two distinct delays. Right and left. So let's say this is a bit of a strange thing about our reverbs. One last note that surprised me a bit was this. The spring reverb you see here is stereo, so I would expect it to be able to receive a stereo effect and output the stereo effect it received. So this is the E that I hear on the right and left, since this is labeled as stereo. If I set the mix to 100%, I would expect to hear both right and left. Unfortunately, that's not the case. So here, it's not really clear what Neural is telling us between the M version and the ST version, because listen. This is the stereo version. Same parameters as the N version. Basically, nothing really changes. The effect itself has more of a stereo ambiance, but not the delay. That is, the delay still doesn't go left and right. This is a bit strange, and maybe it's something worth looking into at the folks at Neural, but obviously I can't look into it myself. Still, it's something that could be asked about in the various groups, just to get some clarification. Okay, so this is the real difference between stereo blocks and mono blocks. Let me know what you think. Leave a comment below. I'd love to hear from you, and I'll try to answer all the questions and comments I get. I hope this video was helpful and that it gave you some more information about this type of block, so you can be more independent in managing your sounds. Please always remember that these essential blocks, reverb, delay, chorus, and kick, work a little bit differently from each other when it comes to handling stereo and mono signals, so make absolutely sure to place them in the precisely right spot. Thanks again for watching, and if you haven't already done so, be sure to subscribe to the channel for more great content. We will see you next time. Goodbye for now.